Come back, Milan Inter analysis and breakdown of the Coppa Italia semi-final first leg in San Siro. 1-1 was the final results. Goals from Tammy Abraham for the Rossoneri and Hakan Calhanoglu for the Nerazzurri was the third. Hakan Calhanoglu go against Milan, his former club. The first one from open play, and it was a goal that allowed Inter to get a draw in the first leg, so they have a slight advantage in the second leg match that will be played on April 23rd and will determine who will go to the Coppa Italia final at the Stadio Olimpico in Rome on May 14, most likely against Vincenzo Italiano Bologna. It's been a strange season for Milan because in the previous video, we analyzed all the struggles that the Rossoneri have had this season to change two different coaches and a lot of talks regarding the different roles inside the club and in a control room. But they seem to have something special against the Nerazzurri this season because they're still unbeaten in four matches, two in Serie A, one in Coppa Italia, one in the Supercoppa. And even Tammy Abraham seems to have something special with Inter this season because he scored 9 goals for the Rossoneri this season and twice against Nerazzurri, one last night and one in January to win the Supercoppa Italiana in Riyadh. And he has something special about the Coppa Italia as well this season, Tammy Abraham, because he has already scored 4 goals. He has scored in every Milan game in this competition. So it was a wise choice from Sergio Conceição last night to start the English forward. Milan, as you can see in the stats from SofaScore here, didn't have more possession. Far from it, Inter dominated and had the ball for long City rivals, but the other big stats are pretty even between Rossoneri and Nerazzurri because they got 3 big chances each. Total shots, Inter had more, and there were more goalkeeper saves, so more saves for Mike Magnan, who was also the man of the match for Milan. According to Gazzetta dello Sport, I will show you the ratings from the Italian newspaper later in this video. You can see a few stats in here. Inter have a slight edge, but again, the big chances they created are the same as Milan, and it was really an even game because the Rossoneri, especially after taking the lead, they tracked back a little bit and tried to counter-attack, and it was a match that was more even than what many expected because we've discussed the Milan problems this season, but with Inter and in the derbies in general in Italy, it's always a different story. It's not that the best team or the team that is who has the best shape always manages to win the game, and this was exactly the case because the Nerazzurri couldn't win the match. It has to be said that a few key players were out for the Nerazzurri because they had no Lautaro Martinez, they had no Zielinski, they had no Dumfries, who has had an incredible season this term, and so it was kind of little option for Simone Inzaghi, but um, still a deeper squad and probably more quality than the Rossoneri. Still, Milan managed to grab a draw, and it's an important result going into the second leg game that will be played later this month, as I said, on April 23. Rafael Leao is a player that has been very debated over the last few days because he hasn't started for many games against Conceição. Yesterday, he returned to the starting 11 for the Rossoneri and was actually one of the most dangerous players, which confirms that even if he's inconsistent, even if he doesn't provide goals or assists in every game, he's one of those players that Milan will often struggle if they do without the Portuguese. It's true that he has very interesting stats, Leao, when it comes from the bench, when he's introduced as a substitute, because he has 3 goals and 3 assists as a reserve coming on as a substitute. But the amount of troubles that he caused last night and the opportunities that he had showed that Milan must always start Leao, basically. There's no way a player like him doesn't start for the Rossoneri because he has that spark, he has that special thing that always make something happen, really. Without Leao, Milan are much weaker, And even if he's introduced from the bench, there are fewer options, of course, and less time for the Rossoneri to create something dangerous and meaningful in attack. Um, and here we see another few stats: the shots of target, shots on target, and the total shots, which I've mentioned before. And I want to show you the stats and especially the player ratings from today's Gazzetta dello Sport. Backward. There we go. As I mentioned before, Mike Magnan was the best player on the pitch for the Rossoneri, according to Gazzetta. He was rated 7 out of 10. Pulisic got 5.5, which is the lowest rating for Milan players, but he was not the only one getting this rating because Alex Jimenez and Sotil, who was introduced as a substitute, had the same, just like Joao Felix and Jimenez, who were also introduced from the bench. So let's see what the Gazzetta dello Sport says about the performances of Milan players, starting with Mignan. They mention a save on Correa, on Calhanoglu, on Frattesi, then Zielinski. They say he wasn't perfect on the 1-1 when Calhanoglu scored the equalizer, but uh, the ball had a strange trajectory. He was kind of deflected before, after he was kicked by Calhanoglu. So I think it was pretty tricky to get the ball, especially because the shot was pretty powerful. So I don't see mm, too much responsibility from Maignan there, and I agree that he was probably the best Milan player. But there were other good performance for the Rossoneri. Matteo Gabbia got 6.5. Leao, as I mentioned, is a 7, same rating as Mike Magnan. And Gazzetta says that the first half was excellent. Um, the second half was pretty average. They say he would have deserved to score a goal for the amount of chances that he created for the Rossoneri. The other ratings are pretty much for Milan all around 6 and 6.5, which in Italy is a decent rating. If you got 6, is a performance which is pretty average. If you got below 6, it's below par, and then from 5 downwards, it's they pretty poor performance. But no one has got there. Tammy Abraham also got 7 from Gazzetta. As I said, special feeling with Inter this season. 2 goals already scored against the Nerazzurri from 9 across all competitions with Milan. Let's take a look at Inter ratings as well. According to Gazzetta, Calhanoglu was the best player on the pitch overall because he got the highest rating, 7.5. And again, he scored a very important goal for the Nerazzurri, and it was his third goal against Milan, his former club, the first one from open play. The first 2 were scored from a spot kick for the Turkish midfielder. Worst player on the pitch, the lowest rating was for Frattesi, Italy international. He had scored in the previous match against Udinese. It was a very important goal because he allowed Inter to take the 3 points and maintain the 3 point lead over Napoli, second place in Serie A. But this time around, it was way below par, according to Gazzetta, and it's true that it wasn't a really, truly excellent performance from the Italian midfielder. It was interesting because it's quite rare to see Frattesi and Barella start at the same time for Inter. Most of the times it's either Frattesi or Barella. This time around, they both started, but something didn't quite work for the Italian midfielder. To say he was kind of asleep at the start, and it was too soft to defend on Tammy Abraham when the Englishman scored the opener for the Rossoneri. The other Italian midfielder, Inter, Nicolo Barella, got 6.5, same rating as Joseph Martinez, the second choice keeper, and same rating as De Vrij and Bastoni. What's interesting about Inter is that Simone Inzaghi changed the entire defense because Bastoni, De Vrij, and Bissek didn't start in the previous match against Udinese. Bastoni was suspended, so of course he couldn't play. But it explains quite well the kind of depth that the Nerazzurri have, especially in defense. Darmian was pretty average, 6. Carlos Augusto and Marcus Thuram not entirely convincing because they got 5.5. Correa got a high rating. Um, The Gazzetta say they basically had a slow start, but then he reacted and he was instrumental in Chalanoglu's equalizer because he provided the pass for his teammates' goal. Um, Mkhitaryan 6.5, Zalewski and Pavard were introduced as substitutes and got 6. Overall, as I said, it was a balanced game and probably something that not many people would expect, even if, again, the Nerazzurri had a few players out, no, especially no Lautaro Martinez and no Dumfries, which have provided several goals and assists for the Nerazzurri this season. So two big absentees who are expected to come back for the second leg. Lautaro, he should return to action in the next game against Parma, while Dumfries he could even miss the Parma game and the following match against Bayern Munich, first leg of the Champions League quarterfinals next week. So the good news for Inter is that Lautaro is going to return pretty quickly, and they really need him because, as you know, Inter are involved in all three competitions: Serie A, Champions League, and Coppa Italia. They are the Serie A leaders. Now they have a chance to qualify for the Coppa Italia final, even if, of course, Milan will have a lot of motivation because it's the last trophy that remains for the Rossoneri this season. I still think that would be pretty difficult to for Conceição to save his job because results overall have been far from convincing for the Rossoneri and performances as well. So I don't expect Conceição to remain in charge for next season, even if he wins the Coppa Italia. And I still see Inter as favourites across the two legs. So my opinion, the Coppa Italia final would be Bologna against Inter. But of course, again, derbies are always special. Milan are still unbeaten in 4 games, and so anything can happen in the second leg, played on April 23rd. This is pretty much all about the derby and the analysis on the latest meeting between Inter and Milan. Later on, there will be a new video on the Milan changes inside the club with Fabio Paratici reportedly really, really close to becoming the new Milan sporting director. And then from there, Paratici, ex-Juventus and Tottenham director, will name probably a new coach to start a new era for the Rossoneri because this season aside from the Supercoppa and aside from the Coppa Italia, has been really, really poor for the Rossoneri. So they got one last chance to save this season, and it's the Coppa Italia. So the second leg will be in a few weeks, and they'll put everything they have in this match because they really want to lift a trophy to try to save a season that has been pretty disappointing, especially if it's going to finish as it seems. Without Champions League or even without European football, which for a club like Milan is always highly disappointing. So stick around, more videos today and later these days, more analysis, more news on Italian football and Serie A. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel because more will come in the next few days and we're going to break down all the information and news that I have about Serie A and Italian football. We speak very, very soon. Ciao.